Hello and welcome to Making a Difference with me, Becky Harrison. Delighted to be with you again on this Monday. And I have another amazing speaker in with us, someone who I'm really excited to chat with about on air, who is really making a difference in a time of transformation and helping individuals find their way in a world full of digital progress, positive progress, but great for us to have a little guiding hand in where we fit into it all. So I am thrilled to welcome onto the show Marie-Louise Marshall from Hume. And her tagline is about being human in the digital world. She's a leadership consultant, mentor, coach, speaker, and has a wealth of experience in big business, small business, helping other people as well. So, Marie-Louise, we are thrilled to have you with us today. You are very welcome.
Thank you very much, Becky. I'm delighted to be here with you.
Really excited about the conversation that we're going to have. We have had a little bit of a chat off air just about everything that you do, about the incredible amount of experience you have, but also how you're really making an impact in this time of transition. And as we embrace digital transformation and technologies, and how we fit into those worlds. So tell me a little bit, first of all, just your sort of elevator pitch about what you do now in that space. And then I'm going to take you back to tell us a little bit about how you got into this line of work.
Well, now, as I say, I want to focus on being human in the digital world. And that's about helping people thrive, not just survive in the digital world, helping people understand their human differentiators that will allow them to thrive. I think that's less than a minute for an elevator pitch.
That's pretty impressive. That's very impressive. No, and that, look, I think it is such a brilliant thing. So I suppose then, how did you get into this? What's your experience? What experience do you bring to get you to this point now where you have this merge of digital and the importance of the human?
Well, I came up through IT in most of my career. I started in banking, and back when, I'm just going to say, there were, if you saw them now, the Museum of IT was around, and you saw the big discs and the big tapes. I dealt with those. So I've come through IT through many, many years, and I've always been involved in delivering advancements for work. So I was in the bank. I was on the program that put in ATMs. I was on the program that put in digital, joined the banks together. So lots of experience of innovative movement forward in providing solutions. And it's always been very exciting. I left the bank in the early 90s and I went to pharma, which is a highly regulated business. I worked for a Danish company first, and then I worked for Servier and Arclo after, on a site that went from 18 million boxes being exported when I joined to like nearly 300 million boxes being exported when I finished in the Irish site, before being promoted to head office, where I was given the project of digital transformation for the industry of 11 sites in 11 different countries. What I discovered, well, firstly, people always ask me to help them with their PC, and I have to tell them I absolutely am crap with technology, because I always worked with teams, and I always was able to deliver based on the people that worked with me. So I always knew that I was never going to be able to do something on my own. It was the case of the team around us and what we could do as a collaborative of joint strengths, as opposed to, I always needed somebody to fill my gap, if you know what I mean. But when I started working on the digital transformation, I was very much discovering, regardless of what factory I was working with or what culture of people I was working with, the people who were faced with the technology coming alongside them, more so in this digital age than in previous ages, were fearful of what's going to happen to me. It was more visible that there could be job impact with the technology that's coming now, for example, robotics,
Yes.
or AI or automated processes. It's more visible that there could be a bigger impact. So people were there going, oh, what's happening? How do I fit?
Yeah.
And I suppose I was getting buy-in from the management in the different sites because they were perceiving it's an operational thing. So it doesn't affect us.
Yeah.
And, you know, so they were there going, oh, yes, look, we've new toys and we've something to show off when visitors come and we're seen as progressive, etc. But the management weren't seeing that this also was going to impact them, because when you put in these new operational automation, you don't need all the monitoring. You don't need the micromanagement. So I was seeing sort of conflicting things of, actually, you do need to change the way you're managing, because this micromanagement level is going to go. That means some of your hierarchy is going, people who typically wouldn't have been impacted by job losses or technology impacts before, now we're all of a sudden being faced with it. So when COVID happened and I was unable to travel because I was away all of the time at that stage. So when COVID happened and I was stuck in my back room, stuck here in this room, nice room to be in, but when it happened, I really took time to reflect on what was my purpose in this and going forward. What was my leadership going to be when we got back up and running? Because I had really realized it was a different impact on people we were having. It was a different sell we were going to have to make. And the people who are impacted not necessarily were developed enough to be able to work into their human differentiators. Mm-hmm. So what I was saying to people when I would go on a site, I would be saying, okay, we're now in the fourth industrial revolution. The first one being steam, where we had the steam engines and the looms, etc. The second was electricity, where we got production lines, which was about 100 years later. We got production lines and we got, you think of Ford and the cars coming out at speed. Then we went to automation in the 70s, where we had the robotics. So think Toyota in Japan. And then we went to the 2000s, where we had the internet, where communication and data became available. And that was only so there was 100 years between the first and second. There was 180 years between the second and third, about 40 years between the third and fourth. And we're now on the brink of the fifth industrial revolution. And it's only 15, 20 years later. We're in the cognitive revolution, where we're looking at the harmonization of human and machine intelligence. So I was there going, okay, we are still using the patterns from the Industrial Revolution, like our education. We started from the industrial times, we started with industrial schools to train people for a labor market. Those patterns, the work week, all of those patterns still kind of exist now, haven't evolved much, but we're still educating for a labor market, which is a labor market using our left brain, which is the brain of logic and rational thinking, problem solving in the basic forms. It's the brain that says if then else. It's the brain that says just take in industrial loads of data and you now have knowledge, but knowledge isn't wisdom. And we need to be going to our right brain, where we say we have this knowledge, but we also have experience. So how can we bring those together to bring wisdom, to bring innovation, collaboration, listening? We have been trained not to do that in ways. You know, we've been educated to say, okay, well, you're brilliant if you get 600 points. But it doesn't accommodate the people who like painting, who like sport, who like all of those things that we need now to make the environment for where we need to be. You know, so we we're educated to do this, to be here, but we're going into a phase where we need to be cognitive. It's our cognitive revolution is coming next, where we need to be using our heart, our innovation, our collaboration, our real problem solving. So, like creative problem solving.
Mm-hmm.
How many times do you turn on the radio when they say the old problems won't solve the old solutions won't solve the new
If you
problems?
keep doing the same thing, expecting different results.
Yes,
I
exactly.
I think that's really, really interesting. And I suppose it brings us on to exactly those human traits. So if you like, if we're looking at AI, we're looking at robotics, they are those kind of logical tasks, those repetitive, can't even say it,
Repetitive.
repetitive tasks that anyone can do. And we really need to look at our human, or anything can do, in fact, but we need to look at our human differentiators that bring into it. And that's exactly what you've been talking about, that cognitive side, bringing different elements together and being able to come up with solutions, the creativity and the value in other traits other than those logical results driven factors that if you like can be automated now. So tell me a little bit more about those human differentiators and how you help us identify them in ourselves and develop them, I suppose, in ourselves.
Well, I kind of, look at what is required for the workplace, for example. And when we advertise for jobs or when we look for people, we look for intellectual and performance related skills, but they're the ones that can be automated. What we don't look, well, we do likely look for, but I'm going to say they're never overtly written on CVs, but they don't look for things like citizenship and community awareness and your sense of service, your compassion, your courage, your gratitude, your honesty, humility, your justice, your respect, and your love. Those kind of things they're not on your CV. We do look likely for things like, able to work independently. We say things like critical thinker. We say things like innovation, but we've no way of measuring those we just expect people to talk a good story about them. And what often happens in jobs where we say, oh, we want to take on a new project leader full of innovation, and you bring on a project leader and then the company brings in consultants. So they don't allow the person to display their innovation or their curiosity. They make them work within a framework of accepted innovation. But we need to be breaking those down because the companies are expecting you to work within four walls, within their infrastructure. And today, we need to be looking at the ecosystem, because if we're really going to have corporate social responsibility, it's not about what happens. It's not only about what happens in your four walls. It's about your suppliers, your customers, the impact you have in the community where you have your offices. It's the impact you have on your future workforce, how you're engaging with them, how you're making your place attractive. Because the generation that's coming up is purpose driven. They don't want to know that you're discharging water that's going to poison a few fish so now we need to be getting to a place where we're looking at regenerative business. You want to be looking at corporate social responsibility, not just as a tick box, but as an actual business strategy. And for that, you need to be taking in the human differentiators, because that's how you're going to engage people going forward.
Absolutely. We were speaking earlier on, before we came on air, about that piece of the next generation, and that businesses and workplaces are dealing with 5 different generations at the moment, and
Yeah,
looking
yeah.
at what those different generations maybe have expect, want, but also are programmed into. We spoke
Mm,
about how, exactly as you say, if you like, this generation is much more interested in their purpose and the impact that they can make on the greater world as a whole, and never mind the business that they're in or the company that they work for, and also what impact that company is making. And so it's leadership within the company then needs to be
yeah,
focused on that purpose and impact, rather than, as you said, we talked about results and numbers driven, but that ego piece where it's about
yeah,
making
yeah,
more money than anyone else, getting more sales than anyone else, when actually it's not about that. It's about much more than that, and the importance
yeah,
of that. And I suppose that also comes in to that piece of this transitional time, because not only are we transitioning and embracing more digitization and artificial intelligence and all of those things, but also the people are evolving. So the generation, it's a transition of a generational transition as well, with those
yeah.
different core values and purposes. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny because we have the keyboard warriors who are willing to cancel you if you're not willing to change responsibly, you
Yeah.
know? So it's very conflicting, you know? And we we have a responsibility to try the generation that are going out who are currently the leaders and were previously called managers, who believe that they can just rebrand as leaders. You can't rebrand as leaders because you were managers, which meant you looked down from a top point. You had hierarchical respect.
Mm-hmm.
But people, like I remember when I started in the bank, my bank manager was called Sir, and the assistant manager was called Mr. And then you used first names. There is no place now you will go into that you would call somebody Sir or even Mr. Or Mrs.
Yeah.
Thankfully, there might be a few mistakes, but that we now have earned respect as opposed to hierarchical respect. We now have expectations of authenticity and honesty. We've had so many scandals and so many, backlashes, and now the keyboard warriors will cancel you for using language that you may not fully comprehend, you know,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
offensive to somebody, and you just kind of go, what have I said? I don't
What have I
understand,
said?
you know. Yeah. So but that's going off on a complete other tangent. But you've got to be aware that we have we're an exiting, my age group is an exiting generation, but we have a responsibility, and there are shouts and calls from everybody in the supply chain to sort of say we have a responsibility to move, that we start making movements towards a purposeful and impactful. Shareholders aren't going to allow us put the big money with people who are sending arms to war zones that we don't agree with, whatever, so pension funds, everything. Your impact is now being much more analyzed. So you have to look at your business as an ecosystem. You have to ensure you have to start working on ensuring that everybody you're aligning with is aligned to the values that you're purporting to hold.
Yeah.
So it's a much more moral, and they're the things that humans do that AI and robotics don't do. They can give you the knowledge, they can give you the data to support, but they don't give you the wisdom. They don't
Yeah.
give you the wisdom that only comes from us sitting in a room, sharing our experience, listening to each other, and questioning the moral rights and wrongs, or the impacts of right and wrong. A robot will never do that.
I think that that's something that's really interesting, because the importance, if you like, of human leadership. And leadership is an area, obviously, I know you coach in it, you are you're an expert
mm,
in it,
mm.
but that is something. And as you've already illustrated the difference between management and, managing and coaching, or managing and leading, I
Leading.
should say. And I think that that leadership piece is a very, it is the very human part of it as well, because not only are we, we all lead, whether it's just with ourselves or
Mm,
within our family environment, with our friends, we all have impact and influence over other people at some level. So
yeah.
even if you feel you're not a leader, you have areas in your life where you will be leading. And I think that, again, if we're in a world where not much, but much of the task-based roles become automated and whatever else, there is still the importance of that leadership piece. So it's what, yes, the computer can produce the data, but it's what you do with the data. It's how you interpret the data. It's how,
Mm,
you
mm.
build those really robust structures around this really strong core information that we have, and we know it's accurate because it's automated, but it's what we do with that and how we do it. And I think something else
Mm,
that we
mm,
spoke about then was, obviously we talked about purpose and impact, but that authentic leadership. So really doing,
mm.
you know, leading in a way that is congruent with your beliefs and values, not what you think society dictates. And I think this is something that is very, very has come up often in female leadership, where you feel
Yeah.
sometimes in the past that you might have to take on very masculine, hard traits to be taken seriously, when actually the best results are going to be if you do it your way. And that might be hard and strong, or it
Mm,
might be
mm,
a little
mm, mm.
bit more collaborative or whatever. And every individual is different. It's not, there isn't necessarily a male female divide, but it comes up when we're talking about female leaders, because sometimes you put on a mask and feel you have to do it one way. And I think that's something with this transition that we're going through, is something that's important, that we have a bit of guidance on, and where someone like you can hold a hand, where we're going from that task driven, ego driven, money
Mm.
driven only, to that much more purpose driven and making an impact rather than just making money, or being aware. And you can do both, of course you can do both, and we want to do both, but it's to do
Yeah,
it
yeah.
in an authentic way.
Yeah, well, I think if you do it right, and the other thing, you were just talking of leaders there, it's funny when you say that this part of leadership is also understanding the social leaders in
Yeah,
your environment, and knowing that your leaders, this is part of the teaming thing, because you may move away from a 40-hour week, and you may move from having a group of experts that come in and out of your business. You'd have trust relationships with them. So you could have people, so your leadership, it's that breakdown of hierarchy, and people are moving like living organisms because your purpose and impact are aligned with their values.
yeah,
And then you're able to listen. So when your workforce is aligned with your values, leaders will leaders for different purposes will appear and
yes,
disappear, you know.
yes.
And I don't mean disappear, but there
They'll
will
be
be
relevant
something.
at particular times
There'll
and
be,
not others.
yes,
Yeah,
they'd be relevant. And so there's that thing of teaming, that you have to understand that a leadership role may not be 100% of your time. You may be a follower in some aspects of your work,
absolutely.
and you may be the leader in others. So you may have a number of responsibilities that you are leading, and when they are delivered, you may be a team member in something else.
Yeah,
So leadership isn't about a
no,
title. It is about a being and a sense of being. And
yeah,
we have been conditioned to believe titles, and titles being the be all and end all, which they're not
yeah.
necessarily.
I think that's very, very interesting, and we're just coming up to the end,
Oh,
Marie-Louise, already. Would you believe it always flies by? But I think that's a really interesting thing to say. And as you talked about industrial revolutions and you know how we're now in the sort of cognitive and harmonization of digital and human, having gone through all the others, but our educational structures are still based on, you know,
Mm,
the industrial revolution and hours of the week and days of thing. And so this future of work is much more aligned to the human, actually, rather than the
mm,
process.
mm.
And it's making sure that we as humans capitalize on our human traits, and bring
Exactly.
those to the fore and really make the future of work about what works best for the human, because we have the task functional piece sorted, if you like, and embracing that. And
Yeah,
because these
in a
are
way, yeah.
fantastic tools in some ways, and bringing out. And so you know, there is some, it's a refocus, and I suppose this transitional phase of bringing the world and big corporate companies and small tiny companies that have been focused so
Mm,
much on the task and the you know, the process, um into this more human focused world. And I think, you know, we're talking about business, we're talking about leadership, but you know what, in the world generally, and we're seeing it all around the world at the moment, there is this big there's this big disconnect between humans at the moment. We, you know, and I'm
mm,
not
mm,
getting into
mm,
the
mm.
political thing, I don't want to go down that route, but
No.
actually it is going to do everyone a whole heap of good if we all look at each other as humans and what that means and how what we can bring to the table.
Well, it is really about creating community, you
Yeah,
know, and taking the ego out
yeah,
of leadership, you know, really very much. You know, we can't, like, we met through
yeah.
networking, and I cannot recommend it enough. Now, there's networking I don't like, which is very transactional,
Transactional. Yeah,
which at this time it's not right for me. You know, because I'm in this thing about creating community and creating bring, you know, making people understand that, as you say, the process driven things, they're the things that don't really bring us joy. We can
yeah.
feel a sense of accomplishment, but really joy. But we have a potential to get to work together and bring the
Yeah,
best out of each other.
yeah,
And understanding that randomness of me meeting you on the street and us saying, I was thinking this, and you saying, I was thinking that. And all of a sudden we have I'm going to say almost a chemical reaction where we
yeah.
find something great. An apple could drop on our head and we could discover gravity. But those kind of random things that come through community is what makes us brilliant, makes us shine.
Well, Marie-Louise, great point to end on. And I think that we have had a really exciting insight into kind of the world we're in and how it is changing and how we need to maximize our differentiators as human beings. Um, Marie-Louise, tell us where we can find you if people want to continue the conversation with you and help maybe understand a little bit more about how they can stand out as a human in their workplace.
Well, I'm on LinkedIn, so you'll find me under Marie-Louise Marshall on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram, so I Being Human Humi on Instagram. And I'm on TikTok for when I want to be really ridiculous.
There's a place for that, and it's a very human side to it.
Yes,
Um,
yes. Well, on those, I'm doing a word of the week to explain some of the terms that people are lost with, and
Brilliant.
give works. But that's also about engaging and reaching out for coaching as well. I'm
Fantastic.
in the process of launching a website, but it'll come soon.
Very good.
It'll
Well, look,
be
really,
advertised on my LinkedIn.
really excited to see your future of your work, but also the future of work for us all and how it's evolving. Marie-Louise, thank you so much for joining me today.
And thanks for giving me the opportunity. It's a pleasure.
Thank you to our team, the production team for the show, and really looking forward to chatting to you again next month. Thank you very much.